What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazik, aka Franchise Play, back with another episode of Ask FP. We are moving rapidly towards the 100th episode of all time. Of all time. You ever heard people say of all time, and they really probably shouldn't? It just don't really fit. Joe Rogan does that a lot. I'm sorry, I don't want to be the Black Joe Rogan. So the 100th episode in history is more appropriate. But I am glad to be here to talk sports, talk stuff with y'all. And so I'm going to jump directly into the question of the week. I promise I am as soon as I find it here. Here we go. All right. And it comes from my man, Derek Dynasty, who is, I'm sorry, Derek. It's not you this week. Oh, my bad. That was pretty bogus. That is not how I meant it. Very sorry. Your questions are there, and they are very much appreciated. But the question of the week comes from Jared Young, and he asked, which 5 players do you think will be in the NBA MVP talks next season? And I picked this question because it was actually something that I had been thinking about. I actually was tempted to write an article on this, because I was going to talk about who I felt was a sleeper MVP pick. So everybody's obviously talking about not Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, especially considering the fact that Kevin Durant left and now Westbrook's going to go off and, just everybody's expecting this huge statistical season from him. And I too feel that that's very much a possibility. So he's absolutely one. LeBron is absolutely one just because he is LeBron. I think Steph Curry and Kevin Durant both are in that conversation, primarily because, they're 2 great players. They're the last 2 MVPs. And yes, they are playing on the same team. And there's a very good possibility that they could take votes from the other. But I still think that they have to be in the conversation. But my sleeper for that top 5 is Kawhi Leonard from the San Antonio Spurs. Kawhi has won 2 Defensive Player of the Years. He's won the NBA Finals MVP. And if you think about it, I think Kawhi's only 24 years old, right? The Spurs, a lot of people are not talking about the Spurs, but the Spurs still are going to look like one of the best teams in the NBA. They are slowly moving away from that old core to a newer, younger, more athletic core with LaMarcus and Kawhi. And I think Kawhi has a great chance to be right there in that conversation for the MVP. And not a lot of people are talking about him. So I'm going to ask y'all too, y'all to excuse my beard. I'm trying to grow a little beard out. You know what I'm saying? I got to keep it managed because my hair is hard. I got the oil that who do you talk to for beard maintenance so you can get soft? I want soft hair on my face, not like this. Your wife don't want to get nowhere near your face type of thing. When you get out. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I just thought I'd had to talk about that because it's bothering me. It's bothering me. So all right, so we're gonna go back. Where are we going to our next question? And this one actually comes from Cameron Johnson. And Cameron asked, says, will my Minnesota Vikings win the NFC North this season with their improved offensive line? If you ask me, no, I don't think so, Cameron. I think they probably finish second or third because I actually think the Bears are going to surprise some people. But the Bears are not my pick. I picked the Green Bay Packers to win the division. I pretty much think that's what everybody's doing. And as a Bears fan, I hate to say that, but I mean, just being honest, I still think the Packers are the class of this division. So we will see what happens now, won't we? All right, the next one comes from my man Taylor Malone, aka Mr. 502, and he says, Usher as Sugar Ray Leonard. Have you seen this? What do you think? I from a just a cosmetic standpoint, I guess it's not horrible. It's not. I don't know if I have never seen Usher act and felt like, oh wow, Usher got some real acting chops. He's got some talent. I haven't really seen that. So, yeah, I'm not sure. And if anybody doesn't know what we're talking about, the Hands of Stone movie, the Roberto Duran movie that's coming out, Usher plays Sugar Ray Leonard, which Sugar Ray Leonard was one of probably Roberto Duran's biggest rival in his career. So it's obviously a very important part. So we'll see. Hopefully he can pull it off a little bit better than it looks in the previews. The trailer looks a little, I don't know. It's not bad, but I'm not totally sold on him as Sugar Ray Leonard either. So just so you know. So Cameron Johnson has another question, and he is Minnesota through and through. He says, who do you think would be a reasonable trade for Minnesota? I think Rudy Gay, simply for bench scoring, or Nerlens Noel. I think that Nerlens Noel is definitely an interesting, would be an interesting get. But I'm going to tell you something. I really don't think the Timberwolves need to trade anybody. I think they have a very exciting, cool young core that they should just allow to grow together. And if you're going to try to get somebody like Rudy Gay or Nerlens Noel, you're more than likely going to have to part with some of those assets. And I don't think they're in a position where they need to do that yet. I think they're on the build, and you don't start moving people when you're on the build. You build up to a certain point where you can identify what it is that you need, and then you start making deals from there. I think a trade right now for them would be premature. The next question comes from Chicken Be Kicking. And he says, I'm 6'4", but I pattern my offense off of, I guess that's Kobe Bryant and Dirk. Have you ever patterned your game off of someone who isn't the same position? Well, see, you got to think about it. There's different ways to look at that, Chicken Be Kicking. Because if you're just talking about pickup basketball, us at 6'4", you're at 6'4", and I'm 6'5". Most of the time when we play, we're big men. Right, so we're playing down. They want us down in the hole, right? But if you've played organized basketball on a relatively decent scale, like even if you just played in high school, depending on what type of high school team you played on, 6'4", 6'5", especially then you start going to college. You're talking about going anywhere beyond that. You're not tall anymore. You're a smaller guy. So it just depends. So it's 6'4" and 6'5". If you're in high school and you want to go someplace else and play, I don't care even if you are the tallest guy on your team, you still need to be developing some sort of perimeter game if you have any aspirations of playing beyond your high school. So I just played the best way I could play, and the best way I could play was shooting the three. That was my thing, shooting the jump shot and, working off the dribble. I can't say I patterned my game after anybody except for with my back to the basket. With my back to the basket, I did kind of try to, use Mike's fadeaway, and I'm pretty good on the fadeaway. I guess I without thinking about it, my fadeaway can look like Dirk's a little bit because I shoot it off balance a lot. And then I do, the shake a little bit, in the post to try to get extra space to get the fadeaway off. So that's the way I play, but I don't know if I can say I necessarily patterned it after anybody. It's just kind of me doing whatever I feel I need to do to get the shot off. So I don't know. The next question also comes from Chicken Be Kicking. And he says, do you like it when players go back home or to their first team to end their career? Doesn't bother me. I don't have an issue with it. I don't have a grand fondness of it either. I really could care less either way. I like it when players reward themselves for hard work is what I understand that even though these guys big, talented, whatever they are, it still takes a lot of work to get to where they are. They don't just fall out of the bed 7 feet tall and just land in the NBA. There's guys you look at who are 7 feet tall just walking down the street. I saw a 7-foot tall drug dealer one day. So, I mean, you know what I'm saying? So just growing a certain size doesn't guarantee you're going to have this great job. They had to work for it. So I like it when they get what they want based off of their hard work, their family's hard work, their mother, their father, or their grandmother, whoever it was, driving them to practice and paying the money for them to get on teams before people even realized they were something special. All of that. I like to see when that happens. So if that means they go home and play, great, you know. So that's what I enjoy seeing. The next question comes from Alex Acosta. And Alex Acosta says, what changes do you think would be necessary to make football safer? That's an interesting question, Alex, because by nature, the game is a violent game. And if people are really, truly honest with themselves, the violence and the collision aspect of it is the part that most people like the most. You know, they like the tackles. They like somebody running another guy over. They like it when the quarterback gets squashed, as long as it's not their quarterback. They like that, you know. So collisions have to be a part of the game in order for it to still be football, in order for it to still be a gladiator sport. Now, in order to make it safer, then I think the thing that you probably have to look at, to me, is you need to start protecting the players' heads. So there are companies already that are in the process of attempting to make helmets that drastically reduce the level or the amount of concussions. I don't know exactly how you're going to be able to do that, but I don't put a limitation so much on that on when it comes to technology on that sort of thing. I do believe there are already helmets that can help to decrease that. Like if you look in baseball, you see the concussion-proof baseball hats. People don't like to wear them because they don't look cool, but probably just not enough people got their heads wrapped around yet, you know, in baseball for them to feel as if they want to, you know, they need to do it. So I think that's where it starts. It starts with protecting the players' heads, to be honest. All right, our next question comes from Tristan. And Tristan says, how many point forwards are there in the NBA right now? So for me, a point forward is a guy who could more than likely handle the ball from the forward position, whether it's the 3 or the 4, and distribute, create his own offense, and create offense for his team off the dribble. For me, I would probably only say there's 3. And I would say that is LeBron James, Paul George, and probably Draymond Green, even though he plays center a lot. But more than, you know, we're all being equal, I'd say he's a forward. Those are the only 3 I can think of. You know, you can look at people like Kevin Durant, who can handle the ball well enough, but he's a scorer by mentality. And not looking to set people up as much, which is not a bad thing. It's just style of game. So I would say 3. All right, who do we have next? We got Torvey Sunderland, who has changed his Twitter avatar, which I didn't really even recognize it at first. So he says, how surprised are you that Westbrook re-signed? How good will the Thunder be next season? Man, well, honestly, I think that the Thunder still have some issues that they have to resolve. I don't think that Westbrook re-signing is the end-all, be-all. I think it makes them a more exciting team to watch because you know he's not going to get moved, and it makes them a team that people are going to root for because people are, you know, him staying. I wrote an article about this for Forbes. Him staying has made Kevin Durant even more of a villain. So, but I don't think they have enough outside shooting. I don't know if they have another scoring option that is going to be able to take pressure off of Westbrook. And so, you know, they got the bigs, though. I love the bigs with Adams and Enes-Kanter. I think they're a great complement to each other. I really think Sabonis could be a surprise this season. So I think they're a borderline playoff team in the West, borderline. But I don't – they're not a contender by any stretch. All right, our next question comes from Weston Flores, and Weston Flores asked, thoughts on Mark Teixeira retiring, and is he a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer? Most of the time when I get those questions, I have to debate for a second, and that, like I've always said, I think this concept might have come from Mike Greenberg from Mike and Mike in the Morning, and he says that if somebody asks you is a player a Hall of Famer? And you have to hesitate and think about it, then the answer should be no. And so I think that that's actually legit. And Mark Teixeira is not a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. I think that he is he's had a really nice career, but everybody who has had a really nice career is not a Hall of Famer. He's had a nice career with a good amount of winning because of obviously his time, playing for successful, I got to get that, find out exactly how many, how successful as a player has he been. But I'm talking about team success, basically. But yeah, I mean, he's got some decent numbers, definitely has some decent numbers. He was an all-star 3 times. He has a career batting average of 269, 400 home runs, 122 RBIs. 1,282 RBIs. Led the league in homers and RBIs once, and that was in 2009 with the Yankees. He finished second in the MVP voting that year, which was the highest he ever finished in MVP. He did win, 3, 4, 5 Gold Gloves. Good. I feel like a really good career, and he only got 1 ring actually, and that was in 2009 when he had his best season. So really good career, really, really good career. But I just cannot say that he had a really good career, a really solid career. I mean, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He had 9 seasons with 30 or more home runs, and 5, 6, 7, 8 seasons with 100 plus RBIs. He had a really, really good career. But I just don't think by the standards of the Hall of Fame that he belongs there. I mean, I think he's right on the cusp, but not quite a Hall of Famer. But I will admit that coming back and looking at these statistics made it a little closer than I originally thought, but still no. All right, the next question comes from Western Flores, and he says, which one of these options is hardest to do in sports? Dunk a basketball, hit a home run, score a free kick, or get a sack? In my opinion, easily the hardest one here is to hit a home run, because I think hitting a baseball is still the hardest thing to do in sports. Dunking a basketball is purely about being athletic enough to do it. That's it. Has nothing to do with anything except for athletic. You can get a guy who can't play basketball hardly at all, but if he can jump high enough to get his wrist in the rim, he can dunk. It's just that simple. You see guys I used to, like Bo Jackson could dunk great, like windmills and all kinds of stuff, because he was just a freak athlete, but he couldn't play the game at all. Scoring a free kick, I mean, yeah, you have to have some skill level to score a free kick, because you got to beat a world-class goalkeeper. I guess if we're assuming that we're talking about high level soccer. And getting a sack, yeah, I mean, depends, different ways to get a sack. You can get it as off of a blitz, but you got to be able to bring the guy down. So obviously that's a little bit about physicality and everything too. But hitting a home run, you have to square that baseball up. And we're talking about major league pitching, I'm assuming. And you have to generate enough bat speed to get it out of a major league ballpark. But you got to make making the contact is the hardest part. So several layers to that. And for me, that one is easily the hardest to do. All right. The next question comes from Derek Dynasty. I apologize, man. I was a little premature with your question. He asked simply, should college athletes be paid? And the reason why I almost said yours at first, because I was debating on whether or not this was going to actually be the question of the week. My answer to that is absolutely, positively, yes, they should be paid. A lot of people feel like, well, they are paid because they get their scholarships. Well, it's a lot of answers to that. First and foremost, everybody who plays college football or college sports don't have a full scholarship. So there's some money that is still coming out of their pocket. So they're not being totally paid with the with their education. Second of all, that's not really indicative of the time that they are giving to the institution and the amount of money that they're bringing into the institution. And I'll give you an example. A kid that is in college for a full ride academic scholarship is allowed to have a part-time job or a job on the side of their classes. They're allowed to do that, and they're allowed to be paid for it. Well, a collegiate athlete, it would be almost impossible for them to have a job on the side, because if they have a job on, they won't have time to go to practice, go to class, and do what they have to do as a student athlete to have a job, to make this extra money that they would need. Now, obviously, yes, their meals are paid for and things of that nature, but there's obviously more needs that they can have. So that they are not allowed to have a job on the side. So they're not allowed to earn. On top of that, even if they did get a second job or a job or whatever, that job can't have anything to do with their celebrity of who they are as a collegiate athlete, because then now there's questions about their eligibility, because are they making money off their own likeness, which the NCAA is already making money off their likeness. They just are not allowed to do it themselves. It is total straight prostitution and exploitation is what it is. And they want to dangle, and people who support this want to dangle and talk about the education that is being offered. But if we were to equate the dollar value of that education to the amount of money that the NCAA makes off of these athletes, it does not compare. It does not compare. So it is very, very unfair in a capitalistic society, which is what we live in, that we are holding this group of people hostage, more or less, for the time period that they're in college, that they cannot capitalize off of the brand that they are building for themselves. It is crazy. Now, I'm not proposing that people should be able to make money or they should be paid from the NCAA based off of their performance. So I'm not saying that Leonard Fournette should get paid more than the rest of the players on the LSU Tigers roster because he's the best player. No, I think they should all be paid for their time. So if you're a collegiate athlete, you get an allowance, you get a certain amount of money that is paid to you every 2 weeks, because essentially you have a job for the university. You have a job, and they should be paid a certain amount every 2 weeks, and it should be the same across the NCAA. So I don't care if you go to Savannah State, you should get paid the same amount every 2 weeks that the Alabama Crimson Tide players get paid. Now, if you are a player like a Johnny Manziel, who was able to establish a certain level of celebrity, and you could make some money off of who you are, I also think you should be allowed to do that, because that's what we do in society. We create opportunities for ourselves and we make money off of it. Now, I could totally understand the NCAA saying, well, yes, you can make money or you can do a commercial or so and so forth, but you can't be in that commercial with an Alabama Crimson Tide jersey on or a hat on. You can't represent this university if you're collecting money for yourself. I can get that. But if you are a student athlete who has gained enough fame to where your face and your name by itself, without mentioning the university, is worth money to investors and advertisers, you should be able to get paid for that. That's just fair. That's the way it is in every other walk of life in the United States. So it's crazy that it's not that way in college sports. The next question comes from Derek Dynasty as well. And he says, how could IMV Gaming be successful in their journey to bring college sports back to video games? So if anybody is not aware, IMV Gaming, I've talked to these guys. They have the idea that to bring, they're focusing on college football first, but they want to bring college sports back to video games, and they want to do it on with basically their indie development group. So they're still putting a lot of things together, but it's exciting what what they have in mind that they want to accomplish. I think the biggest thing is make sure that you bring, and I actually told them this, make sure that you bring the community along for the journey. They cannot try to compete, obviously, with the EA Sports and the 2K Sports out of the gate. They already have one advantage because they're making a game in a genre or in a subgenre that EA and 2K is not ready to venture into at this point. Also, they need to make sure that their legalities are straight. Know what exactly they can and can't do in regards to allowing the community to create rosters, allowing the community to create games and have them be shared. Know for a fact that you cannot be sued for what you're doing, because the last thing you want to do is create this awesome product that people are loving, and then the legal aspect kicks in and it kills or tears down all your work because of some research that wasn't done. But make sure it is a community game. When people feel vested in a creation or in a product, they are going to, one, be more patient with it, because you got to understand there's going to be some bumps along the way because they're a smaller group. They don't have the dough more than likely to throw at their project like EA and 2K does. So they're going to need the community's assistance and support. And the best way to do that is to involve them and bring them along for the journey. All right, my next question also comes from Derek Dynasty, and he says, would you ever let a subscriber or Ask FPer answer questions with you on Ask FP? Derek, I have thought about this a lot, and I already know for a fact that I am definitely going to do this at some point. I haven't ever really decided when, because I don't want to just do it one time. I want to do it like on a fairly regular basis. So not every week, but maybe 1 week out of the month or something to that effect. I tab somebody who is able to, commit to an hour or so of answering questions on Ask FP with me. Now, obviously, I would want that person to be somewhat professional. I don't, because you're going to be on this, on the visual podcast. So, obviously it's on certain things we're not going to want to have on there. We want the sound quality to be good, the visual quality to be good. So there's a few little things that got to work, kinks we got to work out to make sure that it can come off the right way. But I am absolutely wanting to do that. I love the conversation. That was one of the first things I was worried about when I first started doing this. Without having somebody here with me, how would I be able to, to vibe and go? But it's worked out okay. But I do like having someone to talk to or play off of during these things quite a bit. I find that even my personality comes out more during that session. So yeah, definitely something I want to do. The next question comes from Victor Daniel Torres. And Victor Daniel Torres says, if Team USA were to lose, he's talking about men's basketball, I'm assuming, which team do you think would get gold in Rio? I think that's easily, it would be Spain. Spain, they're looking a little bit old on that front court right now, but I still think they are the second best team in the world. And it would definitely be them to me if there was somebody to step in and win gold instead of Team USA. The next question comes from Brock Lesnar, not the real one. But, hey. Do you think that Shelton Benjamin's injury hurts SmackDown at all? If so, how? I think it does hurt it. I don't think it kills it, but I think it definitely does hurt it because Shelton Benjamin is an exciting performer. And for anybody that doesn't know, he was getting ready to come back to the WWE. He was announced and everything, but apparently he went through a physical, and they found that he had a torn rotator cuff. So now he has to get that fixed before he can even think about coming back. And from the image in his tweets or the message in his tweets, he didn't even necessarily sound 100% sure that the WWE deal would even still be there for him when he was healed. So hopefully it is and will, because I really like Shelton Benjamin. I always have. I liked him from the first time he appeared in the WWE before he even had his hair dyed, I believe. So I think he's exciting. He's definitely a little bit older up there, but I think he was somebody that people were somewhat looking forward to. So I do think it hurts a little bit, but not too much. The next question, and actually we blew through this pretty fast today. This is actually the last question, and it comes from James Livingston. And Mr. Livingston says, do you think that Robert Easter Jr. could give problems to Terence Bud Crawford at 140 pounds? I don't. I really don't. Totally honest with you right now, man. I don't think there's a 140 pounder in the world who can fool with Bud. I think Bud is the class of 140 pounds, and I don't think it's close. If he and Broner ever fought at 140, it would be embarrassing. He destroyed Broner. If he fought Pacquiao at 140, it might be a little bit more interesting, only because, and only assuming, Pacquiao maintains the speed, because speed is still always a thing, right? And Pacquiao has some zip on the punches still. And I think, to be honest, I think Pacquiao would be better at 140 than he is at 147. That's what Freddie Roach wants him to fight. And you got to remember, Pacquiao hasn't fought at 140 in a while. So I think it's a better weight for him. But I understand from a Pacquiao and a top rank standpoint, there's not as much money at 140 as there is at 147. So, but no, Robert Easter Jr. is a nice fighter. He is a nice fighter. You know, I know that he's a nice fighter, but I don't think he's on the same level as Bud at all. I think Bud is a top 4 or 5 fighter in the world, and Robert Easter Jr. hasn't even cracked the top 15, 20 at this point. So he's got a little ways to go before I think he's on that level. And probably, and to be honest with you, I don't think I ever will think that. So, but that's all I got. I don't know. I had 17 questions, but it feels like I went through them fast. Maybe it's the beard. I don't know. Fast talking beard, having boy. I don't know. At any rate, I appreciate you watching as always. God bless. Peace.